Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. First of all, I'll do introductions. If you guys are new, my name is Brianna and this is at You Ready Beast channel. You already know what I'm gonna say. If you guys have not, please go ahead and subscribe now, because this is going to be a very informational video about, I'm doing 10 tips about how to find a preceptor if you are in grad school. So a clinical instructor or a preceptor for if you're in grad school. So FNP, pediatric nurse practitioner, psychiatric nurse practitioner, whatever it is. These are 10 tips that you can use, that I use personally myself, to find a clinical instructor or preceptor for your practicum rotations once you get to that point in school. So go ahead and like and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so that you can get these alerts, and let's get started on these 10 tips. So, as you guys know, if you all follow me on Instagram, then you know that I have struggled finding a preceptor for my clinical rotations. I am at Walden University right now in the family nurse practitioner track, and as we know, online schools and master's programs that are for nurse practitioners are getting away from searching for clinical instructors for the students, which I think is utterly ridiculous, because all of the schools have, these things where they're geared towards working adults, because some people can't just not work and they go to school. And so they should do this, find us clinical preceptors so that we don't have to, especially if you already have agreements and affiliate agreements with people and you know that students have used them before. I think it'll be easier, but since that is not the case, this is my personal experience about the tips that I have used, and I just wanted to share them with you guys because I'm hoping maybe it would help someone, because I got a lot of feedback on Instagram about how a lot of people have dealt with this, have gone through this. Some people have had to sit out a semester because of this, and I just really felt like for myself that wasn't an option since I'm in my second program and I really just want to be done. I'm up to my eyes in debt and I just cannot. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into these 10 tips. So the first one is, there is no place that is off limits. And what I mean by that is, when you start your search, there is no place that you cannot search that is off limits. I have done Google searches. I have done Facebook searches for people. Got into groups where if I'm in nursing groups on Facebook or I know someone, I message them on Messenger, a nice greeting. Hello, how are you? I introduce myself in short, let them know who I am, what I'm looking for, okay? I'm in a nurse practitioner group on Facebook that is strictly geared towards, getting students precepted or preceptors. So some of the students is students in the group, and then there are some members who are actual nurse practitioners or doctors. And I just have to get that. I will put the name in the description box of what the group is, so that if you're in this position, you can definitely join the group. But there are students in there all the time who are saying, hey, I start clinical this and this time. I need this, how many hours? I'm in this area. Can you guys help? And there are people or students in there who have already graduated or are in the program or farther along, and they'll put down names of doctors' offices that took them. Sometimes they'll put the disclaimer in that, these people charge, or this facility charge, which I think is another ridiculous thing, but it does happen. And I just want you guys to be aware of the things that are happening. So, like I said, Google search, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I actually learned a tip and trick on LinkedIn for nurse practitioner students, that in the description box, where on your header where you can put, hey, I'm a family nurse practitioner student looking for clinical instructors for primary care, women's health, pediatrics, blah, blah, blah. If you're interested in being a preceptor, please message me. So I learned that on different people's LinkedIn pages that I started to see that were students, so I changed mine that way. Made sure my LinkedIn was up to par with what my jobs look like, what my experience looked like, and then I went ahead and messaged people. Did a basic search in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, or Virginia area, and I messaged as many people as LinkedIn would allow. Hey, I'm a student at Walden University. This is my GPA. Not that anybody cares about your GPA because jobs don't care when you graduate, but I think it's a great way to, push yourself out there. But this is my program. I'm looking for clinicals, that start this day, they end this day. These is how many hours that I need. Can you help me? Some people say yes, some people say, hey, let me check with my facility. Some people say no. If you do not ask, how would you know if somebody's gonna say yes or no? Nothing is off limits. The same with Instagram. I have slid in people's DMs. My friends who are nurse practitioners or nursing students or nurses, been nurses for a while, that know people that have their masters, maybe in a different area. Hey, do you know anyone? Nothing is off limits, especially when our options are so few and a lot of people are in these nurse practitioner programs. You have to be thorough. So tip number 1, no search is off limits. Okay, so the next tip I have for you guys is, does your school have a list of affiliate agreements students have already used? Walden has one. And they tell you, they give you instructions on how to get to it on the website, how to search for it. You can search for it by your zip code and then how many miles you want to go out. This was also helpful to me because I was able to narrow down my search, and it's easier to get your clinical application approved if the person already has an affiliate agreement with Walden. I believe that you can repeat some. So I may use another one of my first instructor. I may use her for my last clinical, but I do already have someone lined up for my last clinical, so I may not have to. But utilize this list if your school has one. If you do not know, ask your clinical resource center, or they call ours. I forget what they call ours, but ask them, do they have a list? And again, that's affiliate agreements with doctors' offices or nurse practitioners. Do they have a list already? Use that list. 3, utilize your field office. That's what Walden calls ours, a field office. So use your field office as much as you can for resources. So a lot of them aren't really resourceful. I know that when I was at Chamberlain, my resource office and the person that they put in contact, she was over most of Maryland. She was stretched really thin and she never offered me anything. She didn't want to talk on the phone. She always wanted to do things through email, even if I didn't understand. It was hard to reach her. So it was a lot of things that I had to find out on my own. So Walden's is a little bit more resourceful, but you still have to do a lot of things independently. But they do call you, they do email you, they do chat, and then they will send you emails as well. So I think they're a little bit more respondent in asking questions and getting your questions answered, etc. 4, plan your visits by city and distance. So I live in Maryland. And there's some surrounding cities that's really close to me. I didn't want my commute to be more than an hour. If I absolutely had to travel, I don't want to drive more than an hour. So I started with things that would be in the range of 20 minutes or 30-minute commute. So I started with cities like Silver Spring or Laurel or different things like that where I could go and the traffic wouldn't be so bad. So I think that that's smart, because once you start driving around to these offices, you don't want to be here in Maryland, then have to drive across town to Virginia or go to Washington, D.C. And where I live at, you can get to all of those within 30 minutes depending on where you're going. However, you don't want to start your search in Maryland and then have to end up in D.C. and then come right back to Maryland. So if I were you, once you compile your list, if you're going to Silver Spring, I did a search in Silver Spring, Maryland, when all of the offices were about 5 to 10 minutes away from each other. So I might have been driving up the street or 5 minutes away or 6 minutes away. However, it saved me time, and I'm not traveling back and forth doing 30 minutes here and 20 minutes here, burning up my gas and putting miles on my car. You get what I'm saying? A recap. No place for searching is off limit. That was tip 1. Tip 2, does your school have an affiliate agreement list already, and is it accessible to you guys? 3, utilize your field office for all the resources they can give you. 4, plan your visits by city and distance. Okay, so we're on tip 5 now. Tip 5 is be presentable when you go. So anytime I went to an office or was gonna walk in or had a meeting with somebody, I'm always either business casual or I'm in scrubs. And I think this says a lot because people take you serious. If you come in with street clothes on or you're casual or something like that, I don't know that anybody, would take you as serious as you want them to take you. And I've gotten a lot of response from just being professional looking and being in scrubs, because I'm here for the job. You don't go to an interview in street clothes. You don't go to an interview in Vans and sweatpants. You don't do that. So the same way you would go to an interview is the same way you need to show up to these offices and hospitals or appointments that you have with potential preceptors. 6, be polite and ask questions. The reason why I say be polite, not that this is not a given. Everybody are adults here, and you know what to do and act accordingly. However, if you gotten to the point in your search where you're so frustrated that you have hit a wall, you've called all these people, got turned away, people said they were going to call you back, people said they're going to email you back, it becomes frustrating. So when you get to this point and you go to these offices and you might get some more no's, it kind of shows, and it's no one's fault or anything like that, or they may already be full, or they just can't take you. I have experienced this. It's just like it's saddening to us. It's frustrating, and sometimes I have wanted to break down and cry because I'm just like, man, I have done everything. What else can I do? I just can't get a yes. I got a lot of no's in person, but still always be polite. And ask questions. Ask, if they say, hey, the office manager usually handles that, ask for her contact. Does she have a card? Does she have an email? Does a doctor have a contact? Does she have an email? Are there certain days where they take, walk-in people who have questions about these things? Do you know when they'll be taking students again? So that you can follow up. 7, tip number 7. Have your resume in hand and ready to go. When I would go to these offices, I had a full folder with multiple copies. That means if the doctor is there and the office manager is there and they both want a copy of your resume, here you go, here you go. I have plenty. Everybody gets one, like Oprah says. So I think that this is great because just like if you were at an interview, they already have your resume on file, but it doesn't hurt for you to bring an extra copy if somebody else is in your interview. This is the same way, treat it the same way you would treat an interview. This way that if they ask you to come in and say, hey, let's sit down and talk, they can look at your experience, see if you're a good fit for their office or not. So this makes you look prepared. It stands out because you're organized and you're ready to work. You're ready to learn and be at this office and learn whatever you need to learn from this physician or nurse practitioner so that you can be the best that you can be. Tip number 8, be ready to sit down and talk to an office manager or physician or nurse practitioner when visiting offices. So I kind of talked about this in tip number 6. There's been a lot of times where I came in and the nurse practitioner or the doctor had 5 minutes and they said, hey, would you have time to come and sit down? Of course I would. Of course I would love to come and sit down. And even from those sit downs, sometimes I got to know, sometimes I got, maybe in your last clinical, I'll be able to take you when you're a little bit more independent and you won't need so much supervision. And I actually got a clinical rotation covered by just that experience. It was a new nurse practitioner. not a new nurse practitioner, but it was a new office that he opened by himself. He was the only person there, so he's the only person seeing patients. So right now for him, it wouldn't be smart to have somebody who's fresh out and newly learning to be there, you know, because it's just him and he has to take patients and keep it moving. So he told me he can't take me for my first clinical rotation, but he can definitely take me for my last, and I've solidified him. So definitely be ready to sit down and talk in the office to anyone. You know, if you have the time and they ask you, can you wait? Wait. Be patient, because you never know. If you leave the office, you might have missed your opportunity. Tip 9. Always thank them for their time, even if they weren't able to guarantee you a spot or they were full. I know it's so hard to just be like, you know, well, you know, thank you anyway. I appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. I've gone to an office before and they told me on the phone, yes, we have a spot, come in, talk to us or whatever. I came and I left my resume with them and they said, you know, hey, the doctor will look over it, everything like that. It sounded promising. And I called to follow up the next week and they said, oh, we're not taking students. And I was devastated. But you know, it happens, and you know, sometimes people get information mixed up. You just have to thank them and keep it moving, because this opens the door for people to follow up with you. So what I mean by this opens the door to follow up, people to follow up. I got an email last week about someone who I emailed months ago about a rotation, and you know, I shook her hand. I said, thank you, you know, and she said, I'm really sorry. And I said, it's okay. You know, it's not your fault. You're full. You have students, blah, blah, blah. One of the students ended up dropping out. My name was first on the list for her to contact back. And she emailed me and she said, hey, Brianna, you know, are you still looking for a rotation? One of the students dropped out. You were first on my list. Please email me and let me know when you need to start. What do you need from us, X, Y, Z? And, you know, I can get you in. Now, I already have a clinical rotation set for February, so I didn't need it. But do you understand that that's an opportunity that if I was still looking for it, and if the field office allowed me to go ahead, because we have deadlines, so at this point I would have been sitting out. But if the field office allowed me to go ahead and put in an application, and maybe I wouldn't have to sit out by February, you know, that could have been a potential. Or when it's time for me to start, if I had to sit out a semester and the next semester, okay, well, I already have somewhere to go. And so the last tip number 10 is to follow up. Please follow up. Please do not call people, you know, and they say one thing, and or maybe the office manager isn't there, or maybe the doctor isn't there that day for you to talk to them, and then that be the only thing that you did. Okay, they weren't available to talk. That doesn't mean that next week they won't be available to talk. So it's very important to be able to follow up. You want to follow up, and if it's an email, it can be a phone call, or you can go back to the office. There's been places that I went back to, like, hey, I was here last week, or hey, I was here 2 weeks ago. Is there any way, you know, that I can resubmit my resume? Is there anybody that I can talk to today? I know they weren't available 2 weeks ago, but maybe something has changed. Follow up. And this will give you guys the opportunity to just be open with dialogue and be persistent, because when you're persistent with things, people are like, oh yes, you know, she's persistent, she's serious. The way that I got my first clinical rotation is I called that office 3 times, and they always took my number and took my information, but they never called me back. So the last time I went, I actually ended up driving there. I didn't want to drive there just yet because the office ended up being about 25 minutes away. But I drove there. It was my last stop. It was like a whole maybe month before I was supposed to, or a couple weeks before I was supposed to have my application submitted. I went in, the office manager told me, she said, could you wait? I said, absolutely. I waited there. The nurse practitioner was like, come on in my office, let's talk to you. I found out that she takes Walden students all the time. She loves to take students, she loves to teach, and she signed my paper that day and committed to being my preceptor. So I know that this is a hard process. I know it's a long process. It's very draining. However, I just urge you to stay persistent. please persevere and push through, because now I have 3 clinical spots and I'm just working on the 4th one. This is my last full year of school, and I pray that everything goes well, and I pray that everything goes well with you guys. And if you are going through this, please go through these tips. I hope that they work for you. They work for me. And if you have any other tips that you want to offer people, please place them in the comments, because this is something big that we go through all the time. And I really just want to help my graduate students out and be less stress-free, especially if you already work, you're in school. We don't need the extra stress. So again, thank you for listening. I hope that I can help somebody with these tips and this video. I love doing these because I really just want everybody to have an easygoing flow, and if I can help with that, I definitely want to help with it. All right, guys, so thank you for watching. Those are 10 tips to help you solidify or find, or even just start your journey for finding a clinical preceptor if you are in grad school. I thank you guys for watching. Happy Sunday. Like I said before in the previous video, we are back to our regularly scheduled programs. So we'll be dropping videos every Thursday and Sunday for the rest of the year. I'm praying that I can be as consistent with y'all as possible, unless I go on some kind of weird hiatus where I just need time. But if you haven't already, please subscribe. We are trying to get me to 1,000 subscribers before my birthday. My birthday is April 2nd. I turned 30 this year, so it would be amazing. But thank you guys for the support anyways. And, you know, I hope this video helps you. Thanks so much. See you guys later.